one of my favorite sayings is if you have a company and it's not making money, you just have a really expensive hobby,
Hmm.
and I don't want a really expensive hobby. I want a successful brand that's really helping women. So, really focusing on those analytics and leaning on that data. And if data is not your jam, not a big deal. There are lots of people who can help you out, help you sort through those,
Hmm.
create dashboards, that kind of thing, and give you an idea. I mean, ultimately, the numbers will tell you what to focus on. You
Hmm.
just need to know where to look and how to pull those numbers together to make sense of them so that you can act upon them.
I'm Julie B, and they don't teach this in business school. Hey there, I'm Julie B, and you're watching They Don't Teach This in Business School, a podcast where we discuss business ownership lessons that are learned through experience, not in a classroom or seminar. Today's show is special because I get to interview Angela Arena, the founder of Kind Lab and Partake by Kind Lab. And I know we are going to just have a really fun conversation, an insightful conversation about her journey as a business owner. So, Angela, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks. I am too, Julie.
So, why don't we just open it up, and why don't you give us a quick overview of you and your business, and we'll just start there.
Sure. So my name's Angela. I'm the founder of Kind Lab, which is a CBD company. I make CBD infused products really geared towards women 40 plus. I discovered cannabis in my own journey. I was working at a startup, super, super stressed out and overwhelmed. And for me, lucky me, my stress response tends to be insomnia, which, like, in theory, should be really helpful. You can't sleep, you can get more done. But it actually, as you know, over time, sleep is one of those critical pillars of health. And over time, it really, really rapidly erodes your health. And I was really struggling, tried everything from, wine to NyQuil to everything, everything that was like socially acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And it all just made me feel like that much worse the next day. And a friend just kept hounding me to try cannabis. And this was in, 2017, 2018, or even potentially before. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. If it's illegal, the government made it illegal, there must be something really wrong with it. Finally, I was like so desperate for sleep. My next step was to go in and try to get Ambien or something like that. And I tried it. It worked fantastically. And I
Mm-hmm.
was so excited. Tried it again the next night, worked great again. So, my whole thing was I had found something that I was just really passionate about. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so important when you're an entrepreneur, is because you spend a lot of time and energy on your startup,
Oh
and
yeah.
being passionate about what you're doing is important. So, not only did I realize that cannabis could be a great natural solution with very little downsides for women who wanted to live kind of like a more healthy, holistic lifestyle, but also trying to figure out ways to like educate women, make it more accessible, and make products for women 40 plus. Because once you hit 40, you're not really in that marketing sweet spot for companies anymore, and there's just not a lot for women out there. And there are things that I would give to my 16-year-old daughter, but those aren't the same products I'd use for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of looked, was a little introspective there, and found, my passion, and really devoted a lot of time and energy into learning about cannabis. And the result is Kind Lab, my CBD company.
Yeah. Well, and so sleep is so important. Sleep's actually one of my own indicators of if I'm approaching burnout or not, because if I'm not getting enough sleep, I'm going to burn out. So I actually
Right.
track that. That's probably one of the most important health metrics that I track for myself, because I just know everything is like the saying, nothing good happens after 3 a.m. or even
Yeah,
midnight.
100%.
I feel like nothing good happens if I'm not getting 7 hours of sleep at least a night. So, yeah, I hear that. So, Angela, what's your favorite part of being a business owner? What do you enjoy the most about being an entrepreneur?
I mean, the people love the flexibility. I will tell you, as a mother, the flexibility is phenomenal. Being able to, go to events and do things, and even grocery shopping in the middle of the day, which is so much more time efficient than doing it, during busy
Mm-hmm.
hours, is really,
Mm-hmm.
really helpful.
Yeah.
So having that flexibility, being able, like I said, to devote a lot of your time and energy into something that you're very passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to see the results of that, as well as, when I get emails back from people, customers telling me how much my products are helping them, that just puts a huge smile on my face. And it's very different. experience when, I used to have customers calling me, telling me how great a product was for a company that I was working for. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's so much different when it's your own company and it's your own passion, and you realize that you're really delivering on that. So that for me is enormously rewarding part of it, in addition to having the time and flexibility to show up as the parent that I want to be.
So, on the other side of that, one question I like to ask business owners is, and it has to do with time, what are some things that you have tried to delegate or outsource or get off your plate that you find are especially challenging and maybe they end up back on your plate? Do you have any tasks like that that you find that you just, for whatever reason, have a hard time getting off your own plate?
Social media is probably the big one for me. I know I'm on this podcast and here we are,
Yeah.
recording it on video, but being in front of the camera is not one of my favorite things to do. But when you have a company, a lot of the times you are the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So social media has been really hard for me. It is something that I've kind of gone back and forth in. I've had people help me. I've done it for
Mm-hmm.
myself, and I've kind of done the hokey pokey there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really hard
Mm-hmm.
for entrepreneurs, especially for, consumer packaged goods entrepreneurs or companies. Having that social media presence is like extremely important. So it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you want to really nail. And for me, sometimes I feel like if I'm able to tell this story, I can do a little bit better of the job. But on the other hand, is that the best use of my time?
Mm-hmm.
So I struggle with that. And that's one of the merry-go-round activities that I tend to outsource and I bring back in, then I outsource and bring back in.
Yeah.
And PR and basically any other activities where you see a lot of, those master classes, master PR, master social media, master all of that. And eventually you have to realize as an entrepreneur, especially I'm a solopreneur, which I don't recommend, but
Mm-hmm.
like there's so many opportunities to become a master of every single aspect of your business. At some point you have to draw the line and just be like, this is one thing that, I'm not going to be able to, or I'm going to choose to take off my plate so I can focus on the things that I either really need to,
Mm-hmm.
want to, / invest at. So that's been a big one for me, is trying to, let go a little bit of not only the control, but also just that task. It is fun for me. On the other hand, is
Mm-hmm.
it the best use of my time?
And how do you make sure that you are working on the highest impact activities? Do you have any tips or tricks that you use to make sure that you're focusing on the things that you know will move your business forward?
I mean, for me, because I do all of my, most of my business, I should say, not all
Mm-hmm.
of it,
Mm-hmm.
is online, looking at analytics, watching where are my customers coming from. Those are the channels that I want to focus on. How am I showing up in Google, making sure I'm, maintaining the care and feeding of that. So, understanding your customer funnel. How are people hearing about you? How are they getting to you?
Mm-hmm.
And then conversion, whether that's email marketing,
Mm-hmm.
social media, or on your e-commerce site as well. What is turning people from lookers into buyers?
Mm-hmm.
And those are really important analytics as well, because they show you where you have opportunities for improvement. So, ultimately, one of my favorite sayings is, if you have a company and it's not making money, you just have a really expensive hobby,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want a really expensive hobby. I want a successful brand that's really helping women. So, really focusing on those analytics and leaning on that data. And if data is not your jam, not a big deal. There are lots of people who can help you out, help you sort through those,
Mm-hmm.
create dashboards, that kind of thing, and give you an idea. I mean, ultimately, the numbers will tell you what to focus on. You
Mm-hmm.
just need to know where to look and how to pool those numbers together to make sense of them so that you can act upon them.
And how do you make sure that you make the time to do that? Is it part of your daily routine, weekly routine? Do you block schedule, or is there anything that you do to make sure that you're looking at that as often as you need to?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I do is I have on Fridays is kind of my clean out day.
Mm.
That's the day where I go into QuickBooks, make sure everything's reconciled. I check all the analytics and see if things are lining up to, what were my sales that week? Did I see any dips? Did I see surges from any, different channels, which could be, maybe I sent out an email campaign, or I had, a podcast or something like that, and that drove some additional traffic. So Friday is really my reflection day, where I look back on the week and kind of tidy up what I did and then start to make a plan for the following week on some, everything from low hanging fruit to longer term adjustments to my strategy that I need to make. Doing that once a week really helps me stay engaged with the business. And it's not so frequent that I become, very, beholden to those numbers. They're not driving me. I'm really trying to use them more proactively.
Hey, this is Julie B, and you're listening to They Don't Teach This in Business School. I'm here with Angela Arena today, and we were just talking about how she makes sure she does the work that she really needs to do and to stay on top of her numbers. So, Angela, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. I want to ask you, what has been your biggest win or your biggest success thus far in your business?
Good question. So, I had a couple of Hail Marys on products that I created. Just trying to think ahead. What are people not doing, in the market so I could have a product that was very different? And also, what is a product that people are consistently asking for? So I actually developed one of our products. It is actually a raw and heated version of cannabinoids. And it really is phenomenal for people with like longer term health concerns, things that are, a little bit more severe where they need a little bit more of a kick. And also a great solution for people who either can't or don't want to go to marijuana and want to stay with like a hemp based product. Um, it is definitely my most potent product and is, even though it is one of the most, actually it is the most expensive, is one of my best sellers. And just being able to come up with a really unique product and then the feedback I get on that one. I have so many referrals through that one. So many, and especially through professionals, like people who are, health consultants, naturopaths, and all that kind of thing. And, being someone who, formulation, I didn't go to school for that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't play a master herbalist on TV or anything like that. So being able to come up with that kind of formula and see the positive impact that it can have on people, including on my brand in general, and just like the halo effect of that has been really exciting for me. It's probably not one of those that seems as exciting to other people, but part of my passion and my objective is really to help people so that they can live a more productive, happy life. And I've heard from so many people how that's really helped them so much. And so being able to achieve that very small objective is just really what wakes me up and drives me every day and gets me inspired. So, when I came out with the product and just the impact that had on people was for me one of the most rewarding events in my career here as an entrepreneur.
So, on the flip side of that question, what do you think is the biggest mistake that you've made thus far in business?
I kind of, mistakes are usually very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully mistakes don't cause any legal problems, but mistakes can be very expensive. And I've spent a lot on people who, promise big returns and all that kind of thing. I think everybody has. If anything, I would always recommend, obviously, vet any supplier that you have and make sure that they are experts in your industry. The one thing I've done is I worked with a trademark lawyer who was convinced that they could get me a trademark. And no, they didn't have any experience in cannabis, but for sure they could figure it out. Well, it turns out that I ended up, first of all, they couldn't get the trademark, which they should have known as a lawyer. And then second of all, I ended up, paying thousands of dollars for them to get trained up in cannabis. That's just not a good use of my time or my resources. So that was kind of one of those failed experiments in terms of, me really realizing that the people that I bring on really do have to specialize in what I'm doing and have to understand what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm going to either be paying for them to get up to speed or paying for their mistakes. So, when you are looking for vendors and you're, vetting partners and suppliers, make sure this isn't their first rodeo, because if it's yours, then that could become your problem. And it's just not something that you've got the time, the money, or the energy, the resources to handle.
Yeah. So a lot of business owners, and I've experienced this myself. I don't know if you have, but you hear the phrase "it's lonely at the top,"
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering, have you ever experienced that feeling of being lonely at the top? And if you have, can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a great example of that. I had a storefront in a local town here, and I remember when COVID hit, we were having, a team meeting, and everyone, everyone's just kind of looking at me because it was before the shutdown, but a
Hmm.
lot of stores had started voluntarily shutting down. And I'm standing there and everyone's looking back at me. And in the meantime, like I'm panicking too. What does COVID mean for the health of my family? What about my parents? What about my in-laws? What about my children? All that. But they're all looking to me for answers, and there was nobody behind me to look at and for me to get answers to. So you really do have to step up. You are the end of the line. Um, and you have to just kind of navigate that with as much grace as you can muster. Honestly, resilience is something that on the pro side, I've really been able to master the art of the pivot. You get some bad news, you wait for an hour or two, you regroup and make a plan. And I think when you are at the top, having all that reliance on you, resilience is really critical. So if that is not a skill that you necessarily have as an entrepreneur, I can guarantee you one that it is one that you will develop.
You have to. I feel like
Yeah.
if you're not a resilient person, it's going to be really hard to, or and if you don't develop it, it's really hard to be an entrepreneur. I tell my mom whenever I talk to my mom about what's going on in my own business, I laugh and I say, Mom, I fail probably 8 out of 10 times every single day, but the
Yep.
2 times I succeed are usually pretty big success. So, yeah, you've got to have that mentality of you're gonna fail, you're gonna get knocked off the horse, and you got to get back up on it as a business owner. That's a definite skill you got to have for sure.
Yeah.
So, Angela, have you ever experienced burnout as a business owner?
For sure. And ironically, my whole company is all about self care and how self care isn't selfish and the whole thing. And talk about something you don't learn in business school. Burnout is very sneaky, it can sneak up on you very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
When I first opened my store, I didn't have the money to hire anybody else yet. So I worked at that store nonstop for probably 6 or 8 weeks every day,
Mm-hmm.
completely like gutted my way through it. But by the end of it, I was just absolutely exhausted. And I realized that I should have invested in some employees sooner rather than later. And even if I'd gone flat for a couple of weeks, at least my mental and physical health would have remained intact, which
Mm-hmm.
meant that I had much more endurance. I was more resilient, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And again, one of my big sayings is like, if your cup's empty, you can't fill anyone else's. So, all the entrepreneurs out there, keep your cup full. It's extremely important. It's kind of like anything. Like I try not to get angry because it's so hard to come back to baseline once you've lost control. And
Mm-hmm.
burnout is the same way. 10 minutes every day just to relax, regroup, meditate, box breathing, yoga, like whatever is your jam.
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes a day is going to be an incredible investment because it will save you hours and hours and hours of time, distress, mistakes, lost resources. If you do really let yourself get to the point where you're circling the drain, you'll just have to backpedal so much. So, when you're an entrepreneur, you really do have to have that self reflection, self knowledge, and self awareness to understand that taking care of yourself, you are the business. Taking care of yourself is the same as taking care of that business, and it is extremely critical.
You're watching They Don't Teach This in Business School. I'm Julie B, and I'm here with Angela Arena, and we were just talking about burnout and some of the feelings of being lonely at the top, and the resilience that you need to be a business owner. And the nice part of it is that if you are resilient, if you keep going, if you do take care of yourself, you get to enjoy success and you get to see goals being met. So, Angela, one thing I want to know from you is, how do you define success for yourself?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I said, having a brand that is financially successful is incredible. But for me, it's also how many people can I bring along the ride? Employees, other vendors, partners, all that kind of thing. You have options, like I mentioned before, vetting partners, but even, you have options. I try to really focus on supporting other women and minority owned businesses because, all boats ride with the tide. So that's a really big thing too, is, how many people can you bring along in the journey? Obviously, if your company is financially successful, and what is the impact that you're making? I know some people, the products that people want and the products that people need. More companies tend to make products that you want because, obviously, the whole aspirational lifestyle, I mean, all of that, demand
Mhm.
generation is all very real. But I just get a lot more personal satisfaction about creating products that people need and seeing, listening, hearing back from customers that those products have been successful. So I know, some days I'll just be really struggling, with burnout. And, you get that one email from a customer who says, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I finally slept through the night. It's been years." And that can do a lot for you to keep going and, keep that, keep your inspiration moving forward. So for me, bringing other people along and understanding that my products are making a difference for my, other women 40 plus out there is, those are some of my key metrics of success, personal success.
And what you said, the getting that email or getting that customer testimonial on those really hard days is it's so important. What I do, I actually literally print those out and put them in a folder. And when I'm having a hard day, I will go and look at that because that's my part of the motivation for me to keep going. So I often tell people, if obviously to support small businesses, the best thing you can do is buy their products or services. But if you can't do that, or if it's not the right fit, whatever it is, give them a good review on all the social channels. Comment something positive on one of their social channels. Send them an email. Comment on their YouTube video. For me, I'm always saying subscribe, all of those things, because the little things that keep business owners going when they, maybe the customers aren't coming in, or whatever it may be. If you can't support a business by purchasing from them, you can support local business and small business by doing some of the things I just mentioned. And I think that you just reiterated that point of, it's important that because you will see it, the actual people behind the product or the service are going to see that, and that's going to keep them motivated to keep going as well. So that's just so important, I think, to remind people of that.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So Angela, what legacy do you hope to leave?
I started this, a big reason why I started this company was inspired by my daughter and making sure, for women and girls, making sure that we're creating a better world for all of us. And that's why my products are really focused on women and helping them understand that self-care isn't selfish. And women tend to put everyone else's needs in front of theirs and end up kind of, in that point where their cup is really empty. So my goal is to, help create a world where that is normalized, and women are seen for their contributions, rewarded for them. And then understand also that they're worthy to be at the table. They're worthy, self-care is important, and they're taking that time to have the self-care. It maybe sounds like a little bit too esoteric or lofty, but it's leave the world a better place
Yeah.
than you came into it. And for me, that is trying to create a world that's kinder and gentler to my daughter and girls and women.
Mm. That is that's an excellent legacy to leave, and I think you're well on your way to leaving that legacy. So,
Thank you.
Angela, listen, I have so enjoyed this conversation today, and as we're coming to the end of the conversation, I do want to ask you, if you were going to teach a class to future business owners or people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, what's one thing you would really want them to learn from your class?
I would say entrepreneurship is very difficult. Having someone along with you on the ride is great. If you have a partner, make sure you've got that partner. It is really like a marriage. And people don't realize that, and partnerships can go really bad. So sometimes people decide to go it alone. If you do go alone, don't feel like you have to be alone all the time. There are advisors, there are networking groups, they're all everywhere. And if you can't go to them, they're on Facebook, great support groups. But stay engaged and make sure that you're, nurturing your network, because when you really need them and you need someone to lean on and you feel like, kind of you're that lone person on the hill, Those are the people that can really help you and support you through and keep your head up so you can keep going after your goals.
Great. Well, Angela, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I just want to thank you again for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with us and your products and services. Why don't you tell the audience one more time where people can find your products?
Sure. So you can find me at kindlab.com. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see where you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, basically anywhere that you are on the social media web. So, Julie, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We had a great conversation. I learned some things, and I know that our audience will as well. So that is a wrap on this episode, but please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting app so that you don't miss out on any future conversations. I'm Julie B., and they don't teach this in business school.